What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Going from zero to producer in 90 days with Ableton Live. I'm your instructor, Torbjorn. This is our third lesson in the series. Today is all about sounds, instruments, and racks. Let's jump right into it. One of the biggest advantages we have with Ableton is we've got lots of different instruments that come with it, lots of different sounds, lots of different presets. We're going to be combining those with the stuff that we learned in our last lesson. Just for a little bit of review, in lesson 2, we were looking at some free online resources to get loops and samples or some cheap options. We were looking at the simpler instrument, classic one-shot in slice mode, different ways that we can chop up samples and recontextualize samples to make new pieces of music. And we use those techniques to make a simple hip-hop beat with those free loops and with the simpler instrument. Recorded it to the arrangement screen, and that was that. That was our beat. Nice and easy. I've gone ahead today and used one of the same websites that we did the last time, Looperman. And I just searched for lo-fi hip-hop drums, and I found this little loop that I liked here. I like that one a lot. Clicked on the download, logged into my account, downloaded it for free, and threw it into Ableton. So that's going to be the loop that we're using today. Let's go ahead and hop into Ableton and get started. All right, so the first place we're going to look is over here on the browser, and that's the sounds category. Sounds are all the presets that come with your version of Ableton Live. They're organized in groups of similar sound characteristics, such as like traditional music instruments like piano and guitar. You'll find those all in the same categories. Sometimes it's abstract concepts like ambient or exotic. Let's take a quick listen to what those might be like. That's cool. Some examples of ambient sounds. Let's take a listen to some examples of some exotic sounds. All right, that's interesting. You kind of get the idea. Obviously, we could go down here and find all our piano and keyboard sounds. And if we find one we like, maybe let's grab this. I like these, this C major thing. We're going to go ahead and drag this onto a MIDI track. Remember that we're working with virtual instruments, which means that they supply the sound, but we have to pick the notes. And in that case, we're going to use a MIDI track to do that. Click and drag our instrument onto the track. We're double click up here to add a clip. I'm just going to click and drag and add a couple random notes here. Not entirely sure what we're going to come up with, but we're just going to throw some notes out there and try it. Number one theory hack, if you're not a music theory person, and that is if you're going for a happy sound, start on the C key and play all white keys. Or if you're going for like a more sad or dramatic sound, start on the A key and use all white keys. I'm breaking some rules and just trying some random things here, so let's take a listen. All right, now let's put some drums in there. We're still just going to be using our drum clips, some pre-made drum loops that we're finding here. Since that's an audio clip, I'm going to put that on an audio track. That's cool. I like the notes that instrument is playing, but I don't really like the sound of the instrument itself. That's where this thing called hot swap comes into play. Shift tab, and I'm going to go back here to my device view on this piano track. Over here in the top right corner, we've got this little button with these two arrows that are pointing at each other in a circle. Click on that, it's going to turn orange, and now we can just double click on any of these other presets, and it will keep the same notes that we put in the clip, but it will change the sound for us. So I've chosen a different preset now, an electric piano smooth preset, and let's take a listen to that. I kind of like that. That's cool. Well, we'll do a different one. We could add a whole other instrument on there. Let's grab something here from the pads category. Same thing, click and drag it where you want it to go. It's a MIDI instrument, so we're going to put it on a MIDI track. Wait for this bad boy to load up. This is a preset from an instrument called Bengal. Double click in a blank space to add a MIDI track. I'm just going to put a big old long C note here. I'm going to Command D or Control D if you're a Windows person to duplicate that note, and I'm just going to push that up to a G. Let's see how that sounds. I like the notes, but not so much the instrument. Let's hot swap that real quick and see if we can find something else, and then we're going to move on. Here we go, Celestial Pad. Let's give that one a try. Cool. So that's a quick and dirty run through of the sounds category. Moving on, another important category is instruments. So sounds are like all of the things that Ableton comes up with categorized sort of in layman's terms. Mallet sounds, guitar sounds, piano and keyboard sounds. Well, all of those sounds are made with Ableton virtual instruments. And if you wanted to look at your presets through a different category, instruments is a great way to do that. So, for example, if we were looking through sounds, trying lots of different piano and key sounds, and we found that maybe the majority of the ones we really like were coming from this wavetable instrument, then we could hone in our search a little bit by knowing that this instrument has its own characteristics, and that if we were to grab things from mallet or guitar or piano specifically from the list of presets that that instrument comes with, that we might be able to find what we're looking for a little bit faster. Again, they're MIDI instruments. They go on MIDI tracks. And then another cool thing worth checking out, all of these presets come in these racks, which we're going to talk more about racks in just a second. And each one of these racks has these macros. So the presets have been built in such a way that rather than opening up the actual instrument and going through all of these different settings, trying to get all this different stuff to work, they have found the 8 most useful controls and just made shortcuts to those controls for us. So if we wanted to change the filter cutoff, we can easily do that from here without having to go into the instrument. We could change the tone of the instrument, or the color, or the space, probably the amount of reverb that's on it. Just a couple twirls of some knobs here, and we've changed the way that this instrument sounds a ton. That's awesome. Same thing with all of these. You can hot swap with the hot swap key. You can grab things from the sounds or the instruments category. Technically, it's the same list. They're just categorized in a different way. Last but not least, I want to talk to you about racks. So racks are groups of different instruments and or groups of different effects, and they're put together in a way that gives you lots of functionality and lots of presets so that you can customize your sounds in like really cool, really interesting, and really intuitive ways. We're just going to scratch the surface with this today because racks is a really, really big topic. But if we understand some of the fundamentals, we can take these sounds that come with Ableton that, from my experience, I can imagine that you will get through these sounds very, very quickly and start to pine for more sounds. And well, really, all we need to do is start combining these sounds to get new combinations of them. And when you start thinking about the math involved with that, it turns maybe a couple hundred different presets into thousands of different combinations. Racks are the easiest way to do that. I'm going to go ahead and switch over here. I've done my Food Network trick here and pre-baked this one. So I'm going to pull it straight out of the oven for you and just press play on this little example clip. So you kind of get the idea there. Let's first talk about parallel effects. I've used this preset here called Grand Piano. You can find it in the instruments and or the sounds category. And I'll just play a chord for you real quick. Pretty standard. Electric piano or grand piano, sounds like a piano, plays like a piano. I wanted to do this interesting thing here. So we've got a rack, and inside of this rack I have dragged some effects in here, and then I have right clicked and said create chain and made this second line here for only ambient effects. I've put a little compression on there, I've put a delay, some reverb, and a saturator. Now this is different than just putting these effects on the piano, because when you've got them in different parallel chains, we have the ability to control them separately. So I'll solo this piano so we can take a listen. We can hear that there's quite a bit of reverb and we're hearing a little bit of that distortion. I can turn this ambience chain off and we can just hear the dry piano by itself. Or we can do the inverse. We can turn the dry piano off and just listen to the ambience. If we zoom in on our effects settings here, you can see that I've taken the dry wet control for that delay and the reverb and turned it all the way up so that on this chain, we're only hearing the echo, none of the original sound. We're only hearing the reverb, none of the original sound. So by controlling these separately, now we can do some interesting things with our macros. All you got to do is press this button right here to open up your macro menu, hit the map button, press on something you want to control. Let's try mapping the compressor. So this compressor on the piano, all it's doing is taking volume levels that are a little bit too high and it's turning that volume down. So if we take this knob all the way to the right, the compressor will be on. If we take the knob all the way to the left, now it turns the effect off. Nice and easy. I've also mapped the volume of the piano, so we have the ability to fade in the dry signal over time. I've also done, you can map more than one button to the same mapping, or more than one knob to the same mapping. So I've done this here with the more reverb button. That is controlling the amount of feedback on the delay, is controlling the decay time on the reverb, making that echo longer, and it gives you the ability to turn that distortion up a little bit. So let's twiddle that knob and see what that sounds like. Lots of power with very little motion there. Also, make sure that you check out the presets on the audio effects rack. If you go into the audio effects menu, audio effects rack, there's all kinds of cool presets in here. Performance and DJ, space, mixing and mastering. Hot swap works on the racks as well. So that's an example of parallel effects. 2 different chains. Just right click here and say create chain, and you can create, as far as I'm aware, as many as you want. Lots of different options to customize your sound. Let's move down here to parallel instruments. I've made a little rack here that has 2 instruments in it. Both of them together sound like this. Now, all this is 2 different sounds playing at the same time. I've got African bars. This chill out zone preset fades in. So we get the pluck of the African bars followed by the sustain of the chill out zone. Pretty simple. Macros on the instrument racks work as well, and you are able to add audio effects to those instrument racks. You can't put an instrument in an audio effects rack. You can only do it the other way around. Quick review of what we were working on. We were finding some presets from the sounds and instruments category in our browser. We were trying some different audio effects in audio effects racks. We were grouping instruments, we were grouping audio effects, and we were using macros to control them. It's a deep dive that you can go in with the macro stuff. A great place to start is with the presets and just look at what they've done with those presets so you can understand the construction of that a little bit. Remember to try hot swapping lots of different stuff. If you don't like the sound, you can always change it. And that's the lesson for today. Keeping it short and sweet because there's so many possibilities with audio effects racks and with instrument racks. Remember, experimenting, pressing buttons, trying to break stuff is the best way to figure out what everything does. If something goes totally weird, you can always Command Z or Control Z or hit Edit, Undo, and you've got lots of undo states, so there should be no fear of making anything sound weird or bad. Just try lots of different stuff and have fun. We'll be back for another tutorial in a couple days. Happy producing. Thanks again to Ableton for extended free trial. 90 days. We'll be covering all kinds of topics to get your creativity out of your brain and coming through the speakers. Have a good one. Peace.